Some of you watch the Oscars, and you probably have some questions or thoughts. We need to talk about some of those bad movies. I'm Marcus Peter. Art reflects culture. I talk about this on my program Ave Maria in the afternoon all the time, and on series like these. The fact of the matter is, art is an overflow of the human experience when it comes to just living his or her life and interacting with society. Therefore, art is an overflow of culture. And because of this, artists can perform two roles. It's kind of a dual function. On the one hand, they can be people who present the zeitgeist, the pulse of what's going on in society, because they have a finger on the pulse of society. But on the other hand, they can also shape culture. And that's why being an artist is actually a massive responsibility that needs to be undertaken well. Artistry is not about capturing your emotions for emotion's sake. Art serves a purpose. Bad art communicates the degenerative reality of a society, but it also communicates the fact that this is where society wants to go. So it's both descriptive and prophetic, and that's a problem. Now, this is what I mean. Let's take a look at the movies that made the waves when it comes to the Oscars. First, you had Anora, which I think won Best Picture. It was apparently the best movie that was in the lineup. Anora is a story about a young sex worker, and I'm going to call it what it is. A young sex worker in Brooklyn who gets a chance at what some might call a Cinderella type of narrative because she winds up marrying a Russian oligarch, and then the family finds out and they try to put a stop to this. Here's my problem with this. A Cinderella story, rightly speaking, has to be the triumph of good over evil. Anora is the enablement of, in this case, life choices that led to the circumstance. Some are going to argue that, it was circumstances that led her to be that to begin with. The reality here is that this is a continued validation of, in this case, sex work. And so she ought not be judged. How dare you judge her for her decisions? This is about women liberation. No, it's not. It's about the perpetuation of perversion in the culture that's arguing that this is a rightful expression of womanhood. It really isn't. It's denigrating to women. And also, it's a great watering down of the meaning of marriage and the family. Emilia Perez, it was one of those movies that people hoped would take the best picture. It's about a drug kingpin who fakes his death in order to become a woman, to become transgender, to become a woman, so to speak. Again, it's communicating a narrative that's trying to steer culture in a particular direction. Oh, what a brave tale of nonsense. And ultimately, Conclave. Conclave is a lousy movie in terms of storytelling. The narrative is completely not based in objectivity and truth. It portrays this kind of overt political underbelly of the Vatican that's completely not true. Sure, politics exists wherever politics exists, but it's completely not true, resulting in the election of an intersex pope who had to have a hysterectomy to have her uterus removed. Now,
I should have told you this morning when I found out, but with everything and I didn't dream that Cardinal Benitez would become...
Ray, please tell me what's troubling you.
I found out Switzerland. Cardinal Benitez trip to Switzerland.
Switzerland, the hospital in Geneva, yes?
It wasn't a hospital. It was a clinic.
A clinic for what?
Now, you see the problem with all of this. By the way, the movie closes with that revelation all of a sudden. You see the problem with all of this, and if you don't, then allow me to tell you this. This is what we are seeing as the destruction of beauty. For beauty to be beauty, I need us to understand this very clearly. For beauty to be beauty, criteria need to be met. This adage, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, is complete nonsense for the one reason. Beauty is not completely subjective. There might be a subjective element to the appreciation of certain things, but that's because people need to be formed rightly. And that's why some people can listen to rap music and listen to Bach, and some people might say rap music is better, and the only reason they believe that is because they've been so poorly formed. Bach is higher artistry, and so the soul needs to be formed to the appreciation of the divine. For beauty to be beauty, it needs to have proportion, which means the size of the depiction has to be in relation to its composition. It has to have symmetry, which is compositional balance, especially when you talk about the human person. So you look at the sculpture of David, for example, it's a wonderful depiction of this. Harmony, reasonable combination of elements, including color. Van Eyck's Adoration of the Lamb is a beautiful depiction of this. Clarity, communicating the quality of being easily understood. There are two works that I love going to, Raphael's Transfiguration and The Adoration of the Trinity by Albrecht Dürer. Both of these things communicate clarity wonderfully. For Thomas Aquinas, beauty must communicate truth and goodness in right proportion. So ultimately, beauty comes from God and goes right back to God. If we adhere to these standards, then yes, the thing is beautiful. If we don't adhere to these standards, I don't care what you call it, it's not real beauty. So no, beauty is not that which when seen is pleasing, as if that's a blanket statement. There's an objective reality to beauty and art that is missing in the popular culture. And that's why we have movies like Conclave that's more than a travesty, it's immoral. That movie Amelia Perez, more than a scandal, it's also communicative of a complete lie against natural law. A man can never become a woman, and we shouldn't enable these narratives as if this is a portrayal of true art and goodness. And that's why we also have things like Banana on a Wall. There was a horrible artist that put a crucifix in what was presumably urine as a depiction of art and culture. There was an Italian artist that showed up to an unveiling with an imaginary sculpture. And yes, these Oscar movies. Bad philosophy leads to bad art. The lack of theology leads to scandalous art. Every authentic art, Pope John Paul II said in his letter to artists, is its own way a path to a religious experience. Artists have a morality. Sacred art is true and beautiful when its form corresponds to its particular vocation, which is evoking and glorifying the transcendent mystery of God. This is Catechism 2502. That's the purpose of art. Even accidentally, and sometimes intentionally, man is supposed to contemplate the artistic hand of the divine God, who is at once the source of beauty and therefore the author of true beauty. So no, don't look to the movies of the Oscars for your immersion in beauty. Instead, let's look to true art, true goodness, true beauty. Appreciate things like the Renaissance and good books and music and poetry. And let's reclaim that as Christians, because that is the Catholic response. Thank you for joining us. I'm Marcus Peter.